The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 69.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library,
the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book
that will enable you to grow personally and professionally.
Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library. Today we have Jay Forty, author of The Greatness Zone. Know yourself, find your fit, transform the world. Welcome, Jay, and thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library.
Oh, my pleasure to be here, Wade. Looking forward to our conversation.
Will you take just a moment to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about you personally?
Sure. I am a certified life and workplace CEO coach, an author, and a speaker. That wasn't always my career. I was a CPA and a CFO for years, excuse me, and then realized that most of my career I was in the wrong place. I'm a big idea person that just needed an environment to keep inventing. And so now I work around the workplace and around helping people discover what the big ideas in life are for them.
Thank you for sharing your background. Now let's jump right into your book, The Greatness Zone, which was just made available, or not just, but made available for purchase back October 1st, 2010. And Jay, we're going to move quickly, but here's some of the top questions our listener/reader wants to get answered. And the first one is, what was the inspiration behind writing The Greatness Zone?
Well, The Greatness Zone happened as a direct effect of the first book that I had written. I had written a book called Fire Up Your Employees and Smoke Your Competition. And it came out of my time as an education director, just at the time the economy was shifting out of an industrial age into an intellectual age. And most organizations had no idea how to hire. They had no idea how to realize that the work that most people did was no longer behind machines, but actually face-to-face or phone-to-phone with customers. And that meant that today's employees needed to know what they were good at and what they were passionate about in order to show up big to their jobs. So we were working with organizations, helping them create a behavioral profile in addition to skill and experience. And then we went out to the world and said, look, if this is you, that, this job needs someone who's dynamic or driven or results-oriented or empathetic or whatever the behavioral words were. We said, if this is you, then you should apply. And everybody said to us, we have no idea. We don't know what we're good at. We don't know how to look at what our core abilities are, what our passions are. It's just nothing we've ever been trained in. So the Greatness Zone came out as a process book to say, regardless of your age, you should always know, what are you good at? What do you love? What matters to you? And what's going on in your world? So you can know your world, and put the two together.
Gee, I think I got a little bit of this answer in what you just described to us, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and that's, what makes your book different from others regarding a similar topic?
Well, this is the part that sometimes, and this is how it fits into entrepreneurship, that, an entrepreneur is somebody who is always watching for opportunities. They're opportunity hunters. And what I realized in this was that the shift in economy created a serendipitous moment for someone to guide other people in learning how to discover your core abilities and then connect them to the world. And there weren't any books out there to do that. And what we did in the Greatness Zone was to create it in story form. So not only would you learn how to do it, but you'd see somebody in the book do it.
And with that being said, Jay, how would you want the reader to engage with your book? Is this a book they should really read from front to back, or is this one they can actually jump in and out, cherry picking different things as needed?
Well, I battled for a while on trying to figure out what the best method to deliver the message of the book. And I have kind of a process brain, and the Fire Up Your Employees book is a process book. Start here, here's how you hire, here's how you engage, here's how you retain. This book, the Greatness Zone book, isn't like that. We decided to go with more of the parable style, but we built some very significant process stuff in it. So my recommendation, because it's not a long book, is you start at the beginning and go to the end, and it gives you some really significant wisdom as you move through, and a process on starting to notice the real you, the real world, so you can put the two together and invent something big.
So Jay, we're to my favorite part of the entire interview, what I call the meat and potatoes. And really, I want to hand over the mic and allow you to really take us through your book from A to Z. Will you do that for us?
Oh, I would love that. I love this. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because I get so many aha faces when we start to do this. And again, like I said, sometimes the thing to remember most about this book, it's a little bit different from an entrepreneurial standpoint because it's looking to help people understand the unique way that they see the world. And in that uniqueness is where your opportunities are created. And that if we know the nomenclature, we know our core ability of looking at the world from our own true perspective, and that we value our perspective, we start to see that there are environments for creation, for product, for service, for things that are missing, for things that are basically could add value and make a difference in a world that just doesn't have it. And so the nature of it is, how do we then help people learn to see things differently? And in that difference, how do we tune in and become opportunity hunters? So the way that the book starts, the story starts between two kids who meet in college. One kid, they're in a freshman philosophy course. One kid is totally together, and she is together because her parents have given her the 5 rules for a really great life. And that turns into the backbone of the book. It shows best as a little Venn diagram. Well, she explains this to a kid who happens to sit next to her, who's totally aimless, has no idea why he's in college, what he's supposed to study, and basically everything about life is random. So her parents have given her these 5 rules, basically, and they show up in a Venn diagram. So picture this, 3 circles. Top left circle, what are you good at? In other words, your abilities. Top right circle, what are your passions or your greatest interests, so your passions. And the third circle is what is success for you, what matters to you, or what your values are. So it's asking you, or it shows you, that in order to know yourself, you should know your abilities, your passions, and your values. And if you knew them, and most of us don't have any idea, and that's really what the story in the book is, that Mary in the book has learned these because her family was determined that for them to be successful, they should be totally present to who they are in their world. If they could know them and know their world, they would always be able to connect the two and find a way to fit. And that fit, in many cases, is what do I do for work? Where is my career headed? Or from an entrepreneurial standpoint, where is that something that I know a lot about that the world seems to need, that if I don't do something about it, nobody will? So Mary introduces to Mike, this kid who sits next to her in freshman philosophy, these 3 circles and then a larger circle that goes around it. So the Venn diagram has the you, what are you good at, what do you love, and what matters to you, circled by a bigger circle called the world. The idea is, if you know you, those 3 circles, and you know your world, the big circle, you will always be watching. You'll always be aware and always be capable of looking through the world for the things that connect best to your unique vantage point. By knowing what our unique abilities are, and that's the big thing that also finds itself in the workplace. The thing that's missing from most people's best performance is that they are in jobs that don't align to what their core abilities are. And most of it is because they don't know. So the more we know that, what our abilities are, hardwired abilities, our go-to reaction, our go-to responses, when we look at a problem or a situation, our brain goes into solve mode. What is that solve mode for you? Is it right brain or left brain? Is it directing or supporting? Is it driven and focused or charismatic and empathetic? You know, that the knowledge of that is creating for us the ability to look through the world in a discerning way. So the more information we know about ourselves and the more information we know about our world, the more we put it together. So as they move through the book, Mary introduces Mike to the way that her parents showed her to figure out, what is she good at? What does she love? What matters to her? And how to look at the world in a very different way. And when that happens, starting to see, what are the places in today's world that need what you do best? Or where is an opportunity from an entrepreneurial standpoint that your unique vantage point tuned you in to something nobody else saw? And that then creates the possibility for something amazing because you're good at it, you like it, and it matters to you. And if you have all 3 of those, the way that you show up to it is significantly more impactful and more significant than someone who is doing it because somebody said, the world said we need this. So as she shows Mike how to do this for her, Mike starts to do it. And the reason why I really like it as a book and why it's getting a fair amount of traction, not only in the entrepreneurial circuit, but it's turning into a go-to book for every college freshman, is that as we watch Mike do it, we do it ourselves. It says, okay, so Mike's doing this. You list out for you, what are the things that you're good at, that you're passionate about, and that matter to you? And as you see that, the real you develops. And from that place, you now start to see and respect the fact that your view of the world is different than everybody else's, and that's on purpose. And that allows you to have a place in a world of 7 billion people, that you get to see the world and show up to that world in a way that allows you to show up as your biggest, best, and most creative self. So by knowing that, and by knowing the world, the goal of the book was to say, this world is ours to scan through and find, of all the things that are here, which are ours, which are for us. And if we could do that, not only would we show up to something more significantly, but if it's our turn to invent, then for some reason we would show up to that and invent things in a far more significant way, because what we look at comes from our greatest perspective. So as we look at something, the ideas that come to us around something that suits us or fits us or is in line with our abilities, then the potential for us to invent something is really significant. So it leads Mike through the process where he does, in fact, I'm kind of a Disney guy. So, I love that people figure themselves out. I'm a college professor as well, and I teach an entrepreneurship course, and we use this exact text to help our students realize that their perspective matters, and their perspective is unique, and they should know what that uniqueness is. And in it, if they connect it to what they see in the world, they will now find that there is a very clear roadmap on where they go, or a very clear area in which they can invent. And when they do that, what they come up with is something far more significant than what other people do.
So Jay, you just gave a great summary, what I call a bird's eye view of what we can expect out of your book. And I believe this next question is kind of harsh to ask an author, but now I'm going to ask you to take it even a step further. Give us a satellite view, if you will. And then that question specifically is, if the reader can only take away one concept or principle or action item out of your entire book, everything that you just laid out for us, what would you want that to be?
Well, I think the most significant comment or concept in it is, in order to succeed in today's world, the biggest thing we can do is learn to see things differently. And the way to see things differently, meaning from everybody else, is to realize that you have a unique vantage point, and you have a unique set of lenses. And the moment you start to give it language about what it is and how you see things, then you enter into a world that is complete, that opens up to a huge amount of opportunity, because you rule things in instead of rule them out. That the clarity of yourself, the clarity about you, creates the ability for you to make great choices, to show up very competent, and then to live courageously in the way that you build ideas.
Excellent. There was a lot in that.
Right.
And Jay, this next question is really an opportunity that I'm hoping you as an author can take a chance to brag on yourself. And the question is, do you have a favorite quote from your book? And the intention of this was not so much a quote from someone else, but one that you had. And if you don't have one that you like personally, maybe one that's resonated with your audience.
I do. It's a tad bit long. It's like 10 lines. Can I use that?
Yeah, go for it.
So in the story, one of the things that happens is Mike, the kid, who is not very aware, gets introduced to Mary, and they meet each other. Mary invites him over to their big Italian family for dinner one night, and the guiding thinking for all of this comes from Mary's father. So she has a conversation with Mike while he's over for dinner, and he says this: today's world is complex and competitive. The better you are, the more you stand out. Blending is not a successful approach in a competitive world. To stand out, you must be exceptional, and not at everything, because no one is exceptional at everything. But everyone is exceptional at some things. So identify those things. And if you love them and are good at them, you'll have the energy and focus to practice and constantly improve. This is how you get in your greatness zone. It all starts with knowing yourself. Practice what you love and you become great. Be great, and the quality of life improves. When we approach our lives by playing to our greatness, we bring our best to the world. And the world benefits from the very specific gifts we're born with. This is how we constantly invent a more significant and extraordinary world. This is how we transform the world.
So will you break that down just a little bit for our reader / listener, I guess?
Yeah, so what he's sharing with is that most people play small. And they play small because they don't know they have the capacity to play great. And what they miss is the self-awareness to know what their particular greatness is. So the tagline on the book, The Greatness Zone, is know yourself, find your fit, transform the world. So the know yourself says, look, your job is to show up big to life, and that's your work. That no one is exactly like you. And the thing that makes you different and unique, you didn't get an owner's manual on. You're going to have to do some work to figure it out. But when you do, you will then be able to take that look at today's world and find where your fit is. That means that in that moment, you show up big to that. You don't do it little anymore. Because in that place, you seem to have awarenesses and understandings and see things that other people don't see. Not everywhere, but in the things that are connected to the way you view the world. So the more self-awareness that you have, the more you are watching that world for the places that fit you. And when you find those that fit you, those are the places you can transform. More than change. It's all about transformation. Because you have the ability to show up big, to do something in that area that may be exactly what the world's waiting for, because it's your thing.
Jay, I believe that if people take what you just said and actually implement it, they're going to see huge results for themselves. And that really leads into our last question, which is, what's a book that you have read, maybe and implemented, but the book created a large paradigm shift or really had a huge impact on your life?
Yeah, I love that question. Purple Cow by Seth Godin. Everybody can do the ordinary. And one of the things I'm finding the older I get is there's no room for ordinary in a world that wants to be extraordinary. So, his Purple Cow book says, look, there are brown cows everywhere and everybody doesn't even notice them. But if you had a purple cow, so what kind of idea could you have? What kind of approach to life? And we even talk about it at home. How could we make dinner a purple cow? How could we make this vacation a purple cow? How could we do something that is not like everybody else's in such a way that we could make it a remarkable memory? And so to me, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, how we think about things is really the value in entrepreneurship. Is how do we notice? How do we pay attention? How do we watch? How do we look for purple cows when everybody else is giving you brown cows? How do you, in the way that you see the world, tune in and find the purple cow? And if you did that, then nobody else is seeing it the way you do. You create the opportunity, and in that, here's the potential for some extraordinary business.
Excellent. Well, Jay, thank you so much for your time today. But before we depart, can you recommend the best way for our listeners to get more information on you and your book, The Greatness Zone? And again, I kind of remind the authors that this is a plug-friendly spot. So I know a lot of people say, I don't want to, leave a plug in here. Please do, because I believe the only people that we have on this podcast are individuals who can help out our audience. So plug away as you may.
Thank you. I love that opportunity. We always are a little wobbly about that. So we have a pretty robust website at thegreatnesszone.com. There's a Facebook page, The Greatness Zone. You can follow me on Twitter at JAY40 FORTE. And the corresponding workplace site is fireupyouremployees.com. And all of our tools about how to attract, hire, and retain today's A-level talent is out on that website.
Excellent. Jay, thanks again for coming on and sharing your creation with us, your book.
Thank you, Wade. And I love that you are asking people these big questions and getting us all to think even larger.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening in today. If you would like to get your hands on The Greatness Zone or any of the other resources mentioned by Jay, just look at the show notes at theelpodcast.com.
Looking for your next book idea?
Head over to theelpodcast.com,
Where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free.
That's theelpodcast.com.
Till the next time, keep it on the EL.